Yay! Session number 50! Woohoo! So I've had a really stressful day today already, and it's only 11 o'clock, which is really early for me. So I really need to do some breathing. So we're going to start in our usual way. We're going to feel around, find our hip bones, point our fingers down, and we're going to try and have our big toe directly underneath the hip bone. So that's what it means when people say stand hip distance apart. If you don't know how to sort of find that, it's from this hip bone. So not the sort of, yay, day 50. So not this bit, but the actual kind of bone. And we want our weight equally distributed between our big toe, the outside of our foot, and our heels. Nice loose knees. So if you're able, I think most people are able to have straight legs without having too much tension. But for a few people, including me, the second my legs are straight, my knees kind of lock tight, and then there's all that sort of tension creeps in. If you do that, if you just lock your knees tight, you can feel the tension, and it's just very hard to get rid of. So what I find is the easiest is to just keep your knees just slightly bent if you need to. If you don't need to, that's fine. But that way it just avoids the tension creeping in. We want to imagine we've got a string coming out of the top of our head, as if we were a marionette puppet, and that will hopefully help to sort of elongate our spine. So we want a nice long neck, shoulders down if possible, arms just nice and relaxed. If you were going to bend your arms, the elbows go outwards that way rather than sort of standing this way. Which, funnily enough, I always used to do that. I would stand like this, and that's why I always say it. But now that is one thing that I've got used to, thankfully, because if I look at myself now, that does look a bit ridiculous, and it feels weird as well, now that I've got used to being sort of this way round. But it is better for your body, so if you do have this weird tendency, try to remember to turn your arms around this way. Okay, so we're just going to swing from our hips, swing our bodies from the hips. We're just going to have our arms nice and relaxed. And they're just going to, so we're not moving our arms around, they're just sort of flapping around with the momentum of our body. And you might hear some clicks. Like I said, I've had quite a stressful day so far, so I'm all sort of tense and I can hear all the clicking and stuff like this, but that's okay. It's usually, most of those sorts of clicks are just like muscle tension. I'm not talking about cracking your knuckles, I just mean, when you sort of, like when you open your jaw, if it clicks, it's usually just tension in your muscles and things like this. So just generally, the solution to most minor things is to just try and relax, I think. I'm not a doctor, but, anyway, blah. So, okay, very good. Shake it out. Okay, so each week we're focusing on different parts of the body. So this week we're lying down, so grab yourself a book if you need one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically, so we're going to lie on the floor on our backs, and ideally what you want is for your back to be sort of quite flat against the floor. Sorry if I sound really flustered, I've just been a bit stressed, so I'm just trying to breathe. Okay, so ideally we want our back to be sort of quite flat on the floor. So depending on how the curvature in your spine is, for some people they don't need a book at all. You'll find out if you just lie on your back. We're going to put our feet on the floor and have our knees in the air. I'll show you in a second. And basically, some people need a thin book, some people a thicker book or two books. I've got quite a big curve in my spine, So when I lie down, that's why I've got quite a thick book, and it just means that then when my head's resting on the book, my back's able to sort of straighten out a bit more. If I take the book away, my back sort of arches up off the floor. So, you know, you're kind of, when you lie down, if you're unsure what you need, maybe grab a couple of books and then just play around with it and see which feels more comfortable, which pushes your back into the floor the best. Because if you have too many books, it's not very helpful. So I'll just angle this camera down so that you can see. So hopefully you'll be able to see me when I lie down. So we're gonna, and also when you're getting into this position, as you're here, if you just try and sort of think about straightening, you know, lengthening your back so that, you know, you don't just plonk yourself down, but try to sort of get into the correct position, if you see what I mean. So I don't know if you can see because I've got my baggy clothes on, but if I put my head down, I can feel it anyway. My back here is sort of off the floor, this part here, can fit my whole hand underneath. But then when I get the book, it does help me to just be able to sort of push down a little bit more. And now if I can't quite get my hand in that space. So to help as well, with whatever book level you have or not, but we're just going to gently sort of, so we're not going to yank anything, we're just going to gently, almost just like stroking our hair or something, but just sort of from the bottom of your skull and just kind of gently kind of helping to put your head in the position where your chin is down. And it feels quite nice to do this. It's quite relaxing and it is a Friday. So yeah, just and hopefully that will help get your neck in a good position. And you can sort of adjust the book whilst you're kind of getting in the right position. We're going to bring one knee up and the other knee. And then just gently, we're just going to, almost like rocking, so you're kind of pulling your knees to your chest, but, you know, in a nice gentle way. And you might feel your sort of bum and this kind of area just coming, just raising slightly off the floor. And that's good because that's sort of stretching the back. But again, don't force it. In any of my sessions, and I would probably recommend in sort of most things in general, you know, don't force it, you know, never let these things, so one foot down then the other, never let these things be a sort of excuse to be lazy, but you know, you never want to force anything. Okay, so I've just got my hands just resting gently on my rib cage, and we're just going to bring, or you can have your hands down on the floor if you prefer, whichever is more comfortable for you. We're just going to gently raise our sort of whole pelvic area and then gently put it down. And again, as you're going down, try and start at the top, feel it going down sort of vertebra by vertebra, and then sort of come to the resting position and up again. Just hold it for a sec and then down again. And we'll just do one more. Up. And down. Nice and slowly, nice and gently. Very good. Well done everyone. So we're going to put our hands to the side, and now we're going to just let our knees drop one way. We don't want to, ideally you want to keep your whole pelvic area staying on the floor. So it's just the knees, just the legs, and then our head is going to go the opposite direction. And then come back to the center. opposite direction to your knees. And back to the centre. And again, you know, you might find, and we'll just keep going back and forth whilst I'm talking, you might find that your knees might go all the way to the floor. You know, obviously, if you're watching me, you can see that mine don't. And back the other way. Or, you know, my knees might be going down a lot further than yours, and you're thinking, oh my God, how did she do that? Don't worry about it. You do whatever, you know, is right for you. You're going to stretch your body, and the other way. And, you know, this is quite a gentle stretch. And, you know, we don't want to hurt each other. You know, some people can do the splits naturally. And just one more time the other way. And some people, you know, need a lot of training to get their muscles to be that loose. You know, we're just all working at our own pace in these exercises. Okay, so we're going to bring our knees back up like we had. And just, again, hug them to your chest a little bit. And just feel that nice stretch. I find this one quite nice and relaxing. And we're just going to circle the knees, just very gently. Again, you know, if anything hurts or, you know, doesn't feel right to you, back the other way, then either just do it more gently or stop, or, you know, just sit this one out or whatever, whatever works for you. Okay, and then one knee down and the other knee down. So now we're going to just do a little bit of breathing. So as I explain each session, we breathe using our diaphragm. That's always the case. But what people often think is that you actively take in a breath and then you relax and sigh it out. We want to flip that on its head. We want to engage the muscle, do the work when we're pushing the breath out, and then relax and drop the diaphragm to allow the air to flood back in. And I will say, when you are feeling stressed, this is a very good way to breathe. You know, people always say take deep breaths, and what a lot of people then do is they'll take a deep breath and relax, and then take a deep breath, and if you don't get rid of all the air from your lungs, you start hyperventilating. And I actually think that's partly why a lot of people hyperventilate when they're stressed, because they think they need to breathe deeply, but because they don't quite know how to, a lot of it is about just getting rid of the air. That's the bit that you want to focus on. And what I find when I start getting stressed and I sort of start to get all flustered and breathing difficult, just get rid of the air. Don't worry about the in-breath, because your body does that automatically. It's like a hydraulic system, so you won't not breathe in, but sometimes you can't automatically get rid of the air. So that's the bit that we're focusing on. So seeing as we're lying on the floor, this will make more sense to you if you've done previous sessions, but don't worry. What I want you to do, as you're thinking of pushing with your diaphragm and relaxing and dropping the diaphragm, I just want you to also kind of, because we're in this position, as you're pushing with your diaphragm to squeeze the air out of your lungs, just think of pushing down into the floor with your tummy. And then when we're going to relax and drop the diaphragm down, you can think of your rib cage and your tummy, you know, just this whole area expanding up towards the ceiling as your lungs fill with air and your rib cage expands. Oh, there's a comment. Let's see, what does that say? Good morning. Oh, hi Iris and Don. Hi. So if you've just arrived, I'll just, because I have to get back in this position as well, I'll demonstrate it too. So we're going to, ideally, if you need a book for under your head, depending on how curved your spine is, so we're just going to sort of sit down like this and then gently roll down, sort of starting with these bottom vertebrae, and then get into this position. Actually, everybody, is called semi-supine, where you're lying on your back with your knees in the air. Full supine is if you would have straight legs, but we're semi-supine, so you still kind of want your feet that hip distance apart. Ideally your knees are just going to be sort of pointing to the ceiling, and so we're just going to breathe, and we're feeling like we're pushing down into the floor as we squeeze the air out of our lungs. And then when we relax and drop the diaphragm, our rib cage and all the expanding is going to be coming up to the ceiling. So we're just going to breathe like this for a bit, and you know, this is a very calming exercise as well, I find. Excellent, very good. So now slowly, just in your own time, just going to roll over onto one side, whichever side is comfortable for you, and then just come into the kneeling position, push up. Try not to do it too quickly because you can get a bit of a head rush sometimes. We're going to kneel up, and then one foot, then the other foot into a standing position. So then we're going to come back into our feet hip distance apart. Just put this book on the table. So feet hip distance apart, nice loose knees, nice elongated spine. And I don't know about you, but for me, normally when I go string out the top of my head, I feel a massive shift in my posture. But when I've been lying in semi-supine like that for a bit, and really the longer the better, I find, I try and get into this correct posture, and I find I'm already mostly there, because it really does seem to relax, for me anyway, my spine, and just sort of helps quite a lot. So remember that if you're struggling, if you're to sort of let go of the tension in your body sometimes, just, it sounds like a bit of a silly exercise, but to just sort of lie on the floor can actually help quite a lot. Okay, so shoulders down. So again, we're going to just breathe. We're going to push with our diaphragm to squeeze the air out of our lungs, then relax. Drop the diaphragm, allow the air to come back in. So again, we're not going to take in a breath, we're just going to drop the diaphragm and just allow the air to come back in. So in a minute, we'll add some arm movements that are going to reflect what our body is doing. So we'll bring our hands up like this as we breathe out, which represents the diaphragm pushing upwards, squeezing the air out of our lungs. Then we're going to relax, drop the diaphragm, drop our arms down as well, and then we're going to bring our arms up like this, which will represent the rib cage expanding as our lungs fill with air. So first we're just going to get into a little rhythm with the actual breathing, and we're going to bend and straighten our legs, and every time we straighten is the in, and then we bend and straighten again on the out. So the bending is like an and in and out sort of a thing. So I don't want any jerky movements. We want to still try and keep our posture if we can. It is helpful to look into a mirror if you've got a big mirror available to you, because sometimes you just see your reflection in the window or something like this. It does help, because quite often as our bad habits creep in, we don't notice them because they're comfortable to us. But that's not necessarily very helpful. So we've always got to be mindful of what our body's doing. Even if we can't get to a mirror, we still got to just be having half a mind on, whatever your bad habits are they creeping into your sort of exercises? So first we're just going to bend and straighten. So, and out, and in, and push with the diaphragm, and relax. relax and push and drop the diaphragm, expand the ribcage and push and in and we'll let the arms now out, in, and we'll go to the side on the next one. Very good, and shake it out. Okay, so now we're gonna just get back into our comfortable position. If you want to sit down now, that's absolutely fine. Let's say, cool, yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you want to sit down, you can sit down now, but still try and get into the correct sort of position with everything else, and then you're just going to kind of bend your knees and sit down. So ideally you're still going to have your feet kind of hip distance apart. You know, you still need this nice elongated spine and all that sort of a thing. Try not to cross your legs. I know it's really hard, like when you're in the habit of crossing your legs all the time. You just don't realise you're doing it until you've been doing it for half an hour. But if possible, don't put your knees together and just try and avoid crossing your legs. And again, like with all the bad habits, if you suddenly sort of realise you've been crossing your legs, and not just for these exercises, this is in general life, it's quite bad for you to cross your legs. If you notice that you're doing it, just stop doing it. You know, don't get annoyed at yourself. Everything we're doing is to try to relieve the tension in our bodies. So, you know, if you get angry at yourself or frustrated, it's not very helpful. It's more likely to just make you feel more tense, or take that tension from this part of your body and put it in another part of your body. We just need to relax out of it and just, you know, we're human. We get things wrong. It doesn't matter. Just try and, you know, gradually improve, break the bad habits, and, you know, we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so what are we doing? Yeah, okay. So we're going to find a spot. Oh, also, if you want to do this in the semi-supine position, that's also absolutely fine. I'm going to talk it through as if we're vertical, but obviously if you are horizontal, then, you know, you can adjust it in your mind. Okay, so we're in our comfortable, correct posture, or as good as we can be at this stage in our process. We're going to find a spot on the wall that is roughly our own eye height. Again, you know, if you're looking in the mirror, then just look into your own eyes. Otherwise, just, you know, find something that it is roughly, so that you can just stay in the correct posture. Otherwise, if you've got to look up or look down or, you know, whatever, it's not very helpful. And so we're just going to channel the breath again to the spot this time, and we're going to push with the diaphragm. But now, when you get to the end of the breath, I just want you to try and push a little bit more, and you will be amazed that, you know, there's almost always more air in your lungs than you think there's going to be. So when you get to the end of the breath, you're going to push a bit more, and then when you're finally at the end of the breath, you're going to just hold it for a little, you know, a couple of seconds, as long as you can. Hold, 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 and then you're just going to relax, drop the diaphragm, and your lungs are going to fill with air. And, you know, if you're doing it correctly, then gradually, as the session goes on, but also as you do more and more sessions, gradually you will find that more air is able to come into your lungs. It takes time, and, you know, sometimes with these sorts of things, like with any training, you know, it can get frustrating, and you might take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or you might not notice any improvement for a while. But don't worry, because, you know, again, like nearly always, things are happening, you know, and if you just keep doing the right things, gradually you might not notice the progress. But, you know, in fact, if you filmed yourself on the first day that you ever did something, and then you film yourself like a year later and you feel like you haven't improved at all, but then when you actually watch yourself, you're like, oh wow, you know, I have improved. So it's always good to sort of, you know, just think how far you've come, and even if you don't feel like you've come that far, you have, you know, it takes time, and it's all good, basically. I'm nervous today, so I'm just talking a lot, but so hopefully you've started already, or if not, we're just gonna channel the breath to the spot. When you get to the end of the breath, try and push a little bit more, and if your diaphragm isn't very strong yet, and you feel that you want to put your hands on your rib cage, just for the end little push, and actually just give it a little squeeze with your hands, you know, that's okay for now, because, you know, we're trying to strengthen the diaphragm, and then you're going to hold it, and then you're just going to relax, drop the diaphragm, allow the air to flood back in. And again, if you're doing this in the room with somebody else, or just following me, if my lung capacity is smaller than yours, don't feel like you need to take a breath just because I'm ready to take a breath. And equally, if my lung capacity is bigger than yours, don't sort of bust a gut and think, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. You know, we're all just working at our own pace. So it's, you know, it's not a competition, and the idea is to just get the air out of your lungs. Try not to hold back, because what tends to happen is then when you've got a big breath, then you breathe on top of that, breathe on top of it, breathe on top of it, because if you're not getting all the air out of your lungs, then you're breathing sort of new air on top of old air, and that is hyperventilating. So we just push, 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 push a bit more, then hold it, hold it, hold it, then relax, drop the diaphragm, and just allow the air to come back in. And all the while as well, I want you to just, you know, be mindful of your body, your posture. It's quite common as you're pushing with your diaphragm, people start to clench their bums. It's quite a common one, because it's sort of in a similar sort of, it feels like the right thing to do. Try and keep your bum relaxed, try and keep your legs relaxed, everything nice and relaxed. Okay, so come to the end of whatever breath you're on, and then we're going to switch to a shh sound, because I'm talking too much. So we're going to go shh. Make sure if you are squeezing with your hands, make sure that at the point that you want to relax your diaphragm, that you're not still squeezing with your hands, because then you can't expand your rib cage. And also try not to do like me and raise your shoulders, even if you're putting your hand, you know, it's very easy to try and just keep everything nice and relaxed. Very good. So just come to the end of whatever breath you're currently on. And then we're going to just have a big stretch. And a nice big yawn. Very good. So that sort of openness in your throat feeling when you yawn, it's a very good position for your throat to be in when you sing. So I know a lot of people are doing this sessions like for a singing reason. So just try to remember that feeling of opening your throat that happens very naturally when you yawn. Some people can just do it even when you're not yawning. Some people find it very difficult. So if you are going to do a performance and you're singing and you know think, oh, then it never hurts to just do a little yawn beforehand, especially if you haven't done a full warm up or something. You know, just try and remember that feeling. Anyway, so we're going to get back into our comfortable position, standing, sitting, lying down, whatever it is, but we're just going to, all the while, whatever position we're in, and this is the same for normal life as well, we want to just try and not have any muscles working that don't need to be working. And you know, usually that happens because we have tension. So even as I always say, I raise my shoulders. That's actually muscles working now, holding my shoulder in this position. And you know, it's exhausting. It's a waste of energy. We need our energy to do productive things. So we're just trying to de-stress, tension. And so we're going to look at our spot, and then I want you to close your eyes. And now we're just going to breathe, and don't worry about pushing too hard or holding your breath at the end. Just get into a natural rhythm that's comfortable for you. You can breathe through your nose or your mouth or whatever feels comfortable. The only thing I want you to be sort of trying hard at is to push with the diaphragm and then relax and drop the diaphragm, and just be mindful of what's happening in that whole area where you're breathing. If you have the sort of mind that you're able to visualize things in your head, then try to visualize the diaphragm as it pushes up and squeezes the air out of the lungs, and then relaxing and the lungs filling with air as your rib cage expands when your diaphragm drops. If you're squeamish, I know some people, I find it funny because I'm not very squeamish about things like this, but if you do find it squeamish, I do know a couple of people who find it helpful to imagine it being balloons instead of lungs, or sometimes I actually think like a syringe, because it's got that hydraulic kind of mechanism that if you imagine you're sort of pushing the syringe, and then if you let go it drops down and the syringe would fill with the air. I think that's quite a good one. Although a couple of people have said that they're a bit squeamish about the idea of that as well. So, but whatever works for you. And if you're not able to visualize it, whatever way your mind works, and if you need to just gently rest your hands on your rib cage just so that you can feel what's happening, just however it kind of makes sense in your mind, so that it's not just your body doing it, but it's sort of your mind is kind of on the case as well, because the two things are so connected, and it really does help sometimes, even just sort of thinking about things to kind of help your body physically do them. Okay, so you're just going to get into your own rhythm, feel comfortable. If you can hear somebody else breathing, if you're doing it together, don't worry about what they're doing, you just get into your rhythm. Okay, so now I want you to just try and listen as well to whatever sounds you can hear outside the room that you're in. So there might be cars driving past, there might be birds tweeting outside. You might be very lucky, like me, and have somebody playing the piano in the next room. But whatever you can hear outside the room that you're in, you're going to just listen to that. There will be other sounds, there will be other thoughts and things going on in your head, and all the stresses of life at the moment. And you can't block that completely, but you just aren't going to listen to it. You're just going to listen to all the sounds you can hear outside the room that you're in, and all the while you're going to push with your diaphragm to squeeze the air out of your lungs, and then relax, drop the diaphragm, and just allow the air to flood back in. you to continue pushing with your diaphragm, squeezing the air out of your lungs, then relaxing, dropping the diaphragm, just allowing the air to flood back in. But now I want you to take one step closer with your mind's eye, and you're just going to listen to whatever sounds you can hear inside the room that you're in. So there might be a clock ticking, there might be a tap dripping, a radiator buzzing, or it might be completely silent. And then you're going to just listen to that silence. And all the while you're going to push with your diaphragm to squeeze the air out of your lungs, and relax. Drop the diaphragm and just allow the air to flood back in. So now I want you to continue pushing with your diaphragm, squeezing the air out of your lungs, then relaxing, dropping the diaphragm and just allowing the air to flood back in. Now we're going to take another step closer with our mind's eye. We're just going to listen to our own bodies. So you might hear your heartbeat, you might hear yourself breathing, you might be completely silent, and then you're going to listen to that silence. And there'll still be other sounds, but they'll melt away because you're not going to listen to them. You're just going to listen to whatever sounds your body's making whilst you push with your diaphragm, squeezing the air out of your lungs. Then relax, drop the diaphragm and just allow the air to flood back in. So now I want you to continue pushing with your diaphragm, squeezing the air out of your lungs, then relaxing. Dropping the diaphragm, just allowing the air to flood back in. Now I want you to put those three things together. So you're going to listen to your own body, You're going to listen to the room that you're in, and you're going to listen to the world beyond the room that you're in. And you're going to feel yourself in the space, and you're going to feel connected to everything that's going on around you, whilst you're present in this moment, pushing with your diaphragm, squeezing the air out of your lungs, then relaxing, dropping the diaphragm, and just allowing the air to flood back in. Feel yourself in the moment. Excellent, very good everybody, well done, another great session. So we are going to finish as we always do with a little sing along, just because it's fun and it gives us a chance to put some of this breathing work into actual practice. So this week's song is Till There Was You. I've got a link to the lyrics in the description if anybody needs them, but make sure you open it in a new tab, otherwise you'll lose the session. So I'll just grab my ukulele. Whilst you're finding the lyrics and we're all getting settled, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the support of just having other people to do this with, and I really hope that it's sort of positive and gives you a good feeling too. Special thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon or PayPal as well, but obviously there's no obligation. I just appreciate you all being here, so thank you very much. So whilst we're singing, we want to try and push with our diaphragm to push the words out. Then when we need to take the breath in, we're not going to take in a breath, we're just going to relax, drop the diaphragm. Oh, thank you, Simon. And then just allow the air to flood back in so that we're ready to sing the next line. So I'm just going to have a little sip of this. Okay, and we also need to try and remember our posture as well, especially me. There were bells on a hill, but I never heard them ringing. No, I never heard them at all, till there was you. There were birds in the sky, but I never saw them winging. No, I never saw them at all, till there was you. Then there was music and wonderful roses. they tell me, and sweet fragrant meadows of dawn, and dew, there was love all around. But I never heard it singing, no, I never heard it at all, till there was you. Yay! Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And hopefully I will see you again soon. I'm back every weekday at 11 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So have a great weekend and lots of love. Keep